Already started for week 2 of 1984 of What Did Prince Do This Week. Let's make sure I hit the right button. Here we go. So first in the chat is Cassandra Bradley. Next up is Andre Staley. What up, Doe? All right, everybody should know what's up right now. Welcome, Lee Christian. It is all groovy. See? Good morning, Nick Belden from a very cold Denver.
Come in the room. Hey, what's up?
Yes. We got Christina from chilly Minneapolis. Looking forward to the conversation today. We got Big Girl 1 from even chillier Canada. Minus 38 C at the moment. Yes, it is.
That's
ridiculous. Crazy.
It's like 15 degrees here, which is ridiculous. I can't imagine minus.
Welcome, Stone Freak. ATL is in the house. Thank you so much, Stone Freak, for respecting. Yes. Happy Saturday, Drea Dances. Welcome, Arlene Oak. I've never been to Bath. Is that the way you pronounce it? I don't even know if you pronounce that correctly. Good morning, Sakari, for being here.
Man, Celie, look like you ready to cuss somebody out. Like that mad deacon. They better, them young folks better sit down.
That's how I feel messing with this phone, man. I hate being on my phone.
I feel you.
I told that boy about chewing that gum in service.
Welcome, Audra. I don't even know if I said hello, Kim. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much. My time checker. Let's see what else we got. All right. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. weekend to all my purple peeps.
Yeah. Tell them you're not working Monday. Tell them.
I have to give a very special welcome to JD Washington, and JD knows why. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Good morning, Mila. My hearts. Welcome. Welcome, Blade Brown. Welcome, Course Correction. I don't know if you've been here live. I love your name. I love Course Correction. Welcome, KMS 1984. Good morning, Purple Saints. It's Mike. Yes, Michael knows what's up. We got D68A from the UK. Welcome, Melvin Rush II. Reverend C. Lee is in the house. You got that right. Welcome, Tracy Humphrey. Welcome, hola, buenos dias, Lisa Williams. Welcome, Dr. Claw. Welcome, JJ Loves Prince. Welcome, Mr. Oshun. It's 37 in the ATL. All right. And let's see. All right. So let's get into the housekeeping. Even though we're about to get into the good part of the song, so maybe we should.
No, go ahead. We're going back here and ride while you do that.
Okay. All right. So we're going week to week, not date to date. Follow the detailed schedule at bit.ly Prince Book Club. That's the QR code right there. You do not need the expanded edition. Where are my books at?
Roll them up.
Yeah, Celia got it. There you go. All right. These will be archived on YouTube at Polished Solid, at MDean. I love that going in the background. Please subscribe, like, and help spread the word. Hit that bell, hit that thumbs up, all that jazz. All right, I had to let that solo a little bit. Okay.
I just let it ride out.
Yes.
That's just like pimp. Getting all the money. And the police arrested. Ain't that a beast? All right. Good morning.
Good morning. And I want to make sure I say good morning to Cassandra because she was first in the chat this morning. And yes, Audra, throw your books up in the air and wave them like you just don't care. All right, so let's get through the rest of the housekeeping with the quickness because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But I want to remind you of our hashtag because I am social media poor, meaning like I'm not on social media a lot. And if you send me something, if you don't use that hashtag, it takes me a while to see it. So if you want me to see it, you got to use the hashtag WDPDTW for What Did Prince Do This Week. And if you have anything you want to send us, just send it to that Gmail. All right. Now, I have to give a very special shout out to Andrea Mitchell, who posted on Twitter, and I found her because she used the WDPDTW hashtag. We've had 2 snowstorms in 1 week in the Chicagoland area and more snow and cold expected this weekend. It's cool though, cause I'll stay in and catch up on my reading so I can be prepared for What Did Prince Do This Week? What Did the Prince Do This Week book club with Polished Solid and Michael Dean and Reverend C. Lee McGinnis. So that's what I'm talking about. So I'm so happy, Andrea, that you're reading and you're letting the world know that this is what we should be reading. So thank you so much. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. Once we start talking about the Purple Rain tour, let us know if you want to come on or if you want to just come on via audio or if you just want to send us some tickets and some photos. We want to hear from you and all that jazz. The estate of Prince Rogers Nelson is not affiliated, associated, or connected with the What Did Prince Do This Week book club series. I don't know the proper whatever. Basically, this is an independent endeavor. It is not official. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. And welcome, Tanja. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Yes. I also love Stone Freak that this book club stays full in the chat. The chat is what's up. That's where it's at. Exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about what happened last week. We're going to have a new little segment with the quickness. Thank you so much, Kim, for posting on the Twitters. I'm still calling it Twitter. And about our first episode of the year with none other than Mr. Dwayne Dahl, who is the author of the book that we are reading. And we were thrilled to have him on. We had a really great conversation. And it also kind of got a little awkward when we started talking about sex. So if you like talking about sex, you might want to go back.
You look at that picture, you be like, sex? What room is that going on?
Yes. So
Dwayne looking like one of them dudes on one of them like UFO podcasts. I saw the plane coming down, bro. I love you, Dwayne.
You know, sometimes I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sometimes when I'm teaching and I can't figure out if students are listening to me, I'll just say sex and just see what happens. And then they'll go like,
with that now.
I know I can't do it anymore. I don't do it anymore, but I used to do it. Another thing I used to do is literally fall on the floor like I was about to see what happened.
What's going on in the classroom? This is in college.
Yeah, this is in college. So I always just like, are they paying attention? Are you really listening to me? And so that's one of the ways that I figure out if someone's paying attention or not. And also it amuses myself sometimes. Oh, welcome, Rhonda Nicole. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We got North Carolina in the house, Charlotte in particular. Thank you, Sakari, for thinking that's funny because some other people might be horrified, but that's what I do.
Hey, real quick.
Yep.
We missed it. I just want to say we sending out our prayers to Purple Cat Confetti. I saw your message there.
Oh, I didn't see it.
In a coma. That's yeah.
Oh, I know.
Hearts go out to you. Hopefully they come
Oh,
back.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I totally missed that. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And
Yeah.
I've missed a lot of messages. Welcome, Ricky. Welcome, Prince Malik. And
I think the chat is like, you fell out on the floor. Like, what's going on?
yes, yes. I do that. Yeah, yeah, I do that sometimes.
At least that's all. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, just, because you have to keep it, on the toes and all that. All right. So a couple other posts that I want to highlight is from Chip and Sparrow from Japan. I really appreciate these couple of posts. One says, I could see how Dwayne loves to write about Prince. That's why his books are great reads. You can definitely tell from his enthusiasm and his positivity how much he appreciates Prince. And then the second message I think is really funny. Professor Tudor is funny. At a point, he turned into a happy, cute puppy. He was so happy with many people. He can talk about Prince. And Chip and Sparrow, it's okay that you're non-English. We really appreciate you actually taking out your time to communicate with us. And I really love what you actually the screenshot for Man Ray about don't corrupt D'Angelo, Dwayne. And I think that's what's part of that conversation as well. But yes. All right. So Purple Cat is saying her name is Rose. Is it Kano? Kano. She's our age and grew up with Prince. Definitely nothing but prayers.
come on, Rose.
Yes.
We want you back in here. Come on in here.
Yep. All right. Okay. So we were playing 2. 8 is really simple because it's just Prince and Eric Leeds, but I put up the Prince vault for anybody else who wanted to do a deeper dive. Again, remember, if you click on most of the images in the slide deck, which you can find on the website, it'll take you where this is. So it'll take you directly to this 2 page if you want to read more about it. So let's get into week 2 of What Did Prince Do This Week, episode number 53. And this week, Prince did 4 songs and 7 studio visits total. So he was in the studio every single day of the week.
Damn.
So let's get started. Sunday, we got basic tracking of 17 days. And then we got overdubs for Oliver's House. We got possible overdubs and mix for She's Always in My Hair. Possible overdubs and mix for The Dawn. That's just Sunday. Monday, overdubs for Oliver's House. Tuesday, studio version review of The Bird. Live version overdub. Wednesday, My Drawers. Tracking. Do that, Michael. That's right.
Yeah, he was on fire.
So I mean, we're just at Wednesday, and we already got 17 days and My Drawers, and that's just Wednesday, the middle of the week, when everybody tried to, getting through Hump Day. Prince creating My Drawers, and then on Thursday, we got overdubs for My Drawers, and then a little ditty called Ode to Tricky, which would become Tricky. So basic tracking and overdubs. So let's recount real quick. Sunday, 17 days. Wednesday, My Drawers. Thursday, Tricky. This is a week of many weeks, but this is a week. And then on Friday, we have Ice Cream Castles, basic tracking. And Dwayne says it's listed as My Drawers. Then Saturday, we got Ice Cream Castles, vocals, and overdubs.
Man, this week right here might be one of the coldest weeks. He was, as they say today, he was cooking. He was like hot grease, like throwing him in the, he was on fire, man.
He was on fire. So I'm with Ricky. My Drawers should have been a single. It would have been hot.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, everybody and their mama loves 17 days. Welcome, Olga. Yes, Olga. If I can only
think
energy and work ethic. Go ahead. Seeley?
Yeah, I think a song like My Draws is what kind of separates the time from a lot of other groups. And this is not, when I say separates, I'm not saying better or worse. I'm just saying that, you know, there were few bands that had the range of musicality. And we could, of course, we all know that Prince is behind that range of musicality. But as we're getting into the Ice Cream Castles album, a few more people are getting a little bit more input. So that's why I've always loved a song like My Draws, is because you really get to see the range that this band, was and ultimately going to become. And I think that songs like that, I think, is why people still flock in droves to see the time, because it really is a full musical experience. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Yeah, my draws.
yes. I knew Michael was going to come through. Michael and Seeley. So yeah. All right. So we're going to start our reading because we got a lot of reading to do. And we are going to go to page 220 of our text. So it's dark in my space. I gotta turn on the light because I can't see.
My draw.
All right, I'll get this party started. Hold on.
Stone Freak. Yes, we do got to give Jesse some credit. Jungle Love and the Bird.
Yes, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna get started. So Sunday, January 8th, 1984, 17 days, basic tracking hours, said all that stuff, but this is all done at Sunset Sound, Studio 3, 2:30 p.m. to 4:45 a.m. Booked, ? Till open. Producer Prince, artist Prince, engineer Prince, assistant engineer Bill Jackson. It was so great having Dwayne on last week and letting us know that Peggy was off on vacation, because I was like, why are these other people here? So Dwayne let us know why. All right. So this is a quote from Prince. All my songs are an extension of me, and any one song couldn't have been written without the other. And just like children, I wouldn't place any above the other. All right, that was from Prince. Okay. Bill Jackson got an early morning phone call saying Prince is on his way down. He's got the whole band coming in, and you've got to go in and set up the room. He's on his way, and I'm just waking up. I got in like around 5 o'clock, and he was calling me in the morning. The band began arriving around 2:30 p.m., and Wendy Melvoin, Lisa Coleman, and Prince took their places in the room. They were separated by gobo panels for soundproofing and amps, which Jackson had mic'd with a Shure SM57 microphone on each one. Bobby Lee, David Coleman, and Jonathan Melvoin joined them as well. Jonathan was in the back in an isolated room playing bongos or something, recalls Jackson. David was playing cello, and there was Lisa on the keyboards, although I think Prince came over and played something too. Basically, they all set up and all played at once, which was nothing like I had expected at all. Prince and the band worked on the track 17 days for the next 2 hours. They had taken a swing at the song the previous summer with Brenda Bennett singing the lead. I really want to hear Brenda sing the lead to 17 Days. That would be really fantastic to hear. And he decided to give it another try. Probably because the band was just riffing on a familiar track, Prince requested that the tape roll at 15 inches per second IPS instead of the usual 30 IPS, giving them 30 minutes of recording space on the tape. Jackson objected, but was overruled by Prince. I said, that's not a line. It's not going to sound right. But he didn't care about that and said, just do it. He didn't care about that stuff. He just wanted the right vibe. Maybe if he had taken more time to be a little hi-fi, he might have lost the edge.
Mm.
Although, did you want to say something, Michael?
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Although the engineer was not ready to record, Prince started working on the song. Jackson furiously kept plugging the various instruments directly into the mixer, but not everything was filling. But not everything was being fed to the tape, and those tracks that were making it onto the tape did not have the proper EQ. equalization, adjustments to the frequencies of the sound, blah, blah, blah. As they were playing, I was adding some EQ and making things sound a little better and getting the levels right. And they played until the tape ran out for like 30 minutes. So I wonder if there's like a 30-minute version of 17 Days.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts going through my mind when I hear this kind of stuff. And it's just one of the things, I love that he's so much in the moment and, just got to get that feeling and get it in. But I think sometimes you compromise sort of the sonicness of the song or the recording. That sometimes when I listen to certain records of Prince, I'm like, God, I wish that was mixed different or something. But maybe it's not necessarily the engineer's fault. Like, you have to just catch him as you catch him, and just kind of, like you said, just basically plugging stuff in, and they're already going. That's just an interesting method. I don't think anybody else really does that, and it captures some great music. But I think sometimes we don't get to hear the music sometimes in its full, if it had been, super mixed down and all that kind of stuff. But, it is what it is. But it gives there's certainly a raw feel to it, which is also interesting that now we come back like 30 years later of some of these albums, and they're like going back in there and remastering them. And I wonder the decisions of, do we make this sound like these supersonic things, or do we, do we keep the uniqueness of the sound they are, but make it brighter or something? There's things that I always think about, the interesting conversations. But anyway, that's it.
Well, this is actually an interesting comment from Stone Freak. Was Mark producing Maserati? Just wondering why he wasn't there. I would think it's too early for Maserati at this point, but it is curious that he's not there. So, yes, good point. Prince Malik, just like 30 minutes. I Would Die For You. Yes, real music by real musicians. All right. So, although the engineer was not ready to record, Prince started. I already read that. As midnight got closer, Prince wanted to work on Oliver's House again. He asked Jackson to find a harp player, so he grabbed a copy of the local American Federation of Musicians yearly roster, contacted a harpist at random, and booked her for the current session. And I'm not going to read what he remembers. I'll go on to the next page. Prince paid her for the entire 3-hour session, despite her harp not making it on the final mix. So that would have been interesting, hearing the harp on Oliver's House. In the meantime, Jackson continues, Prince wanted an accordion, so I had to do the same thing and called an accordion player, Nick DeCaro. And he came in and he let me know that the accordion isn't his main instrument. And Prince said, that's good. Because
interesting. Why would he?
I love this, because he didn't want it to sound really polished. So he came in and he did his part, and Prince knew exactly what he wanted, and he got it and sent him on his way. It is probably that mixes for The Dawn and She's Always in My Hair were done on this date as well. It is unclear whether any additional work was done on The Dawn, but on She's Always in My Hair, it is likely that the finger cymbals, tambourine, and the double and quadruple bass drum over the end were recorded today. It appears that the false ending from the original version was also eliminated during the mix on this date. At the end of the night, 3 TDK SA6C60 cassettes were used to copy the mixes created during this session. Although Prince would remain at Sunset Sound, most of his upcoming sessions would be scheduled exclusively for Studio 2, because he's been in Studio 3 a lot lately. This would be his last session in Studio 3 until March. The status, the new version of 17 Days, 7 minutes and 22 seconds, set on the shelf for 2 months before it was worked on again. It was considered for release as an extended B-side, but ultimately only an edited version, 3 minutes and 56 seconds, was released as a flip side of When Doves Cry. And I can hear myself repeat, Celie. Is it possible for you to mute yourself unless you're talking? Thank you very much. All right. So status, a new version of 17 Days. I already read that. 17 Days was possibly recorded on December 30th, 1983, but the work order for today listed as being tracked during the session. Prince's work orders from this era are notoriously ambiguous on some occasions, but until evidence indicates otherwise, this date will be considered as a session for the release version of 17 Days. And it says the long version remains unreleased. And on some releases, the full title was 17 Days, The Rain Will Come Down, Then You Will Have to Choose, If You Believe, Look to the Dawn, and You Shall Never Lose. There's the possibility that She's Always in My Hair was recorded on this date and not on December 9th, 29th, 1983, but it's also not confirmed. So a lot happened today on this Sunday. Whew. Yes. Yes. Brenda did record 17 days. I mean, you can hear Brenda in the release mix as well, very, very strongly. She comes through in the mix. So she's definitely on it for sure. Let's see what Melvin's talking about. I love the way Prince was definite on how he wanted to record in the minute, the feel versus the tech capabilities. I love that comment. Prince was about the purity of the music. And yes, when did he eat and when did he take a bio break? That's what I want to know too. Like, does he have I'd be curious to know, like, if he just ate a bag of Doritos and kept it moving, or like,
Lord.
It would be curious.
Eat like everybody else.
Yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes. All right.
That bucket of chicken in here, will you?
So we're going to go on to our next day, which, before we do, I forgot I had this. So these are some of the handwritten lyrics from 17 Days. Mm-hmm. And actually 17 Days was released. Again, I'm doing this because Michael Dean said we have to remember the newbies. So 17 Days was the B-side for, I'm trying to make myself, let's see, here we go. And what's important about this for me is that this is my first purple vinyl. And we take for granted purple vinyl now, but when I first saw this purple vinyl in real time, I thought it was the second coming. I really thought, I was like, oh my God.
That's crazy. That is like my favorite, one of my favorite Prince memories, that 45 sleeve there. I mean, the round rim shades, the purple vinyl. I mean, when I think of Purple Rain, that's what I think of, right? I think of listening to that 45 and just honestly just gazing into that picture the whole time. Like, it was everything. That for me encapsulates everything that Purple Rain was. I'll shut up.
And you can see that original long title on the back here. So you got When Doves Cry, and then you got 17 Days and that long title that I won't read again. And I also think it's might have been the first time. What does it say? Let's look inside here. It is, I can't see because it's dark today. It's still saying Controversy Music ASCAP, and this says the first single from the forthcoming Warner Brothers album and motion picture, Purple Rain, Warner Brothers Records.
Yeah, that sets the stage for that whole release.
Yeah, it really does.
First single.
Yeah, when you,
just
like,
that
when you
right there.
When you say forthcoming, I remember spring of 9th grade year, a girl, a very pretty girl, what I remember, singing When Doves Cry, like just in the corner of class. Like, I don't even remember what class, like late, afternoon, after lunch. So, everybody getting ready to go home. I got to go to whatever practice, probably baseball practice. But I just remember this girl singing When Doves Cry, right? And then me wanting to go home and play that record, just thinking about what the movie was going to be, right? When you heard that single, now you're like, well, what is this movie really going to be based on? And then you got 17 Days on the back, and your mind is just really blown because all of these lyrical images that he's evoking, right? And all that anticipation. And what's really interesting is that you go to this movie with all that anticipation, and the movie fulfills everything. Like normally when you have a lot of anticipation for something,
Right.
you may like it, but it may not, live up to. It is amazing the way in which they set it up and then they lived up to all the hype. That's it.
Other thing is I think about what you're just saying, and this is a thing like while we can never not be talking about Purple Rain or its impact, it's everything, just like all the records are, but it's a big thing. But to your point about that movie and your anticipation, we also remember that one big thing I think from today that I take for granted, you didn't see trailers over and over back then. You may not have even seen the trailer for this movie actually, because you would only see trailers at the movie. And you certainly couldn't rewind it and be like, oh, watch it over and over as we do today. So just imagine you're going into, like you said, only with what you are envisioning based off of what you listen to on that music over and over. So you don't know what you're about to get, which makes it even more impactful when he comes on that screen at the very beginning, you're like, whoa, this is what it looks like. I've been listening to this. I had no idea it was going to be visually like that. So yeah, it was stunning. That's what it was. And that's
So I just put in the chat a link to an unreleased version on this site that includes, I think, the lyrics that Brenda originally sung. So it should have came through the chat, but the chat is hopping. So it's up there. And you can see some of the extra lyrics here. No more will I accept your misogynist macho attitude toward my womanhood. And this is when Brenda was singing it. Yes, I can see the fact that you are beautiful, but my dear, so am I. When will I be able to cut through the cellular surface that surrounds your world and make you see this? That is when I'll let you see my, oh, let the rain come down, let the rain come down 17 days. So if you want to dive a little bit deeper into 17 days, you can do so there. All right.
Interesting. What do you say? Misogynistic ways or something?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And because Brenda's singing it. This is when Brenda is singing it.
Aren't those lyrics on the extended version?
I think it is. Yeah.
I think those lyrics are on the extended version.
Yep. All right. So let me see. Share this instead. All right. So we talked about that. I'm not going to talk about that. So let's go to the next day for Oliver's House on page 223. C. Lee, do you mind reading?
Hold on. Let me say 223.
Yeah. And the expanded edition. It's basically Monday, January 9th.
Yeah, Monday, January. I'm gonna do my best. I'm in the sorry, y'all. Anyway. So we're doing Oliver's House, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sunset Sound, Studio 2 and 3, 8:30 p.m. to 2:30. Producer Prince, artist Prince, engineer Prince, and assistant engineer Bill Jackson. Proving once again that Prince is one of the few people who can go in the studio by himself, nobody else, and the only person can leave out with an album. I think we need to notate that when we're talking about GOATs and greatest of all time. Let's get to the reading. Oh man. Will
you be able to?
Okay. I come to think of I can't. Where I am is kind of dark. I'm sorry, y'all.
No worries. I'll take care of it, and then I'll let Michael do. I'm gonna let Michael do the time stuff. So I'll do this one real quick. Celie, don't worry about it. Okay. All right. So this is Sheila E. I've come to think of percussion as the last color added that turns a pretty painting into the most beautiful painting in the world. During this time, Prince maintained a lot of company in the studio. Gone were the days of his ban on visitors. I didn't realize there was a ban on visitors, but that's interesting to know. Wendy Melvoin, Lisa Coleman, Apollonia, Joe Jones, and many others were invited to just hang out and watch. But often they come in shifts or waves, so they weren't in the studio at the same time.
What?
I don't.
You working shifts. I got him coming in shifts, Morris.
No, that maybe he didn't want to be distracted by too many people.
Right. Yeah, that's probably
it. Yeah. All right. I'm not going to read this whole quote thing. And I'm going to go to the next page because of time. So today, Prince started out jamming with Sheila E., looking for a groove. This was something that he had done regularly with Morris Day, but Prince was likely expanding his interest and had found a new muse in Sheila, a female drummer who could keep up with him and inspire him on many levels. Although the session was taking place in Studio 2, Sheila's drums were set up in Studio 3 for recording. Once Jackson had her kit properly mic'd, the impromptu jam session began. I don't think this turned into a song, remembers Jackson. They were just jamming. He had a formula for making his hits, and this type of drumming wasn't part of that. They were just having fun. For the next groove, Prince picked up the bass and played along. He could either play one or the other, keyboard or bass, at a time. I never saw him doing both at the same time, even though I've heard that he has done both at the same time. Between 8:30 p.m. and 10 p.m., Sheila added drums to Oliver's house in Studio 3. Once they were recorded, everyone returned to Studio 2 for overdubs. Sheila's lead vocals were not added on this date, although there was no mix and output to tape listed on this work order. It is fairly certain that the addition of Sheila's drums meant Prince would want to create a brief, rough mix that he dubbed to cassette for his own personal use. Status: the only new music that has been verified from this date were the various studio jams involving Prince and Sheila E. Work would continue on them in a few days, but those recordings remain unreleased. It is possible that Short Berry Straw Cake was created on this date. Interesting. There's a lot I could say, but I won't say that much about this. One thing, because we're going to talk about Tricky this week, and Tricky is essentially just Morris Day and Prince, and that's just like studio magic. I would love to hear just Sheila and Prince jamming in the studio. We really haven't heard that. I've heard, Prince and Sheila in rehearsal and sound check, but not like a studio session. Why are you laughing,
Right.
Mike?
Kim in the chat.
Oh, what can you say?
Renshaw.
Yeah.
They got them in there like Amazon workers.
Oh my God. And Dangerous saying it's not coincidence that it's all women I just named. Okay, you're on Michael Dean's side.
Call him like a C. But it was like you said, he probably just didn't want to be disturbed. He was working hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's only so many people you can fit in a studio, and you don't want people to kill their vibe. And then D68A is saying Short Berry Straw Cake was recorded in February 1984. All right, so let's move on to Tuesday. So, Michael, do you mind?
Wait a minute. Wait. Let me look. I may be ready now. Let me try it. I want to at least carry my weight. So let me at least try to carry my weight.
All right.
That means something to a Southerner like me. All right.
All right.
So we Tuesday, January 10th, right?
Yep.
The Bird studio version review and live version overdubs. Sunset Sound Studio 2, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Book 7 p.m. and then open. Mean they could be there all damn day and night. Producer Prince. Although Prince was listed, engineer Prince, assistant engineer, good old Bill Jackson. Jess's quote is, Prince played everything on the studio version of The Bird and it's sick. All right. According to Jackson, it was a hectic time for Prince. Quote, around this time, he was doing several projects at once, and to tell you the truth, I never knew whose record I was working on. I never knew until the end when I was doing some stuff and Morris Day was there and I was doing some stuff for the time, end quote. In fact, the work order lists Prince as the artist and producer, which means that the purpose of the session probably wasn't locked in until arrival. Prince had finished overdubbing the live version of The Bird for the time, but he apparently wasn't completely happy with it. Perhaps the live energy stood out from the rest of the album, or perhaps he wanted to add elements from the original track that he had recorded in April 1983 at his home studio in Minneapolis. to the live version. But for whatever reason, Prince decided to spend the first 90 minutes of the session reviewing his studio demo and comparing the two versions to determine which would work best in context of the album. Jackson remembers that, quote, they had a copy of the live one and would play it and they would listen to the solo. And from what I can remember, this is Prince basically playing everything. And the reason why was because he knew what he wanted to do. It was Prince and Morris. I don't remember the whole band being there. I didn't work with either members of the band. They popped by to listen, but I don't remember them playing, end quote. Although Wendy Melvin and Lisa Coleman were possibly around for this session, Jackson doesn't remember recording them on this date. Quote, I specifically remember Prince doing the keyboard parts. I remember I was punching in and out for it, end quote. Want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
The studio demo started differently than the live version. The first few bars of the drum introduction sounded like a variation of Little Red Corvette from the 1999 album. Prince continued to work on the guitar parts for the song, and as had happened a week earlier, he wasn't completely happy with the outcome. According to Jackson, quote, Prince was a great guitar player and he played this solo because and it sounded incredible. He played something that was great and said, erase it, because it was too good. It was just too good to make it work. He wanted the song, he wanted it to be believable. It wasn't that it was too good for the time, it was just that the song didn't demand Jimi Hendrix. And maybe it wasn't right. But for me, it was a great solo. In fact, Prince ended up hiding Jesse Johnson's solo, which would have occurred at the 4 minute 11-second mark on the album version. By burying it in the mix, a small section can be heard at the 4 minute 28 section, but the solo was practically hidden until it was brought back at the 4 minutes and 55-second mark.
Wow.
The final 2 hours were spent working on additional overdubs to the track. It is unclear why the session wrapped up at 11 p.m., but a quick mix was probably created of the song at this point. It would be put away for a week or so. Prince could focus on other tracks. Status, the studio version of The Bird, 6 minutes and 29 seconds, remains unreleased. I just like that they talk about him spending, was it 90 minutes or 2 hours just reviewing the two songs?
Yeah.
I can tell y'all, and I'm sure, both of y'all can speak to this too, and people in the chat, but I think it needs to be said that as artists, you often will have modified versions of something. And there are a lot of different reasons why you choose one over the other. Sometimes it's gut. Sometimes it may fit better. I like the notion that the guitar solo that he wanted to choose, right? It was good, but didn't fit that particular song. But I just really like this notion of Prince spending 90 minutes trying to make a decision as to which version he wanted. And those of us who are creators, I know I've spent, whether it's poems or short stories, I can't tell you how many countless hours reading over lines or reading over sections and reading over images just to try to decide, right? And so this is a great peek into the window of that creative process so that we all know that, no, Prince didn't just fly down from heaven. This is work, right? This is a dude who is putting in work and is doing all the things that we're doing, making decisions. Now, we may can add that sometimes his decision is better than ours, right? Because we often question, man, should I have taken that line out or not? Would this image have worked better? And I'll also add that that's why collaboration is great too. You need sometimes another set of eyes and another set of ears. And don't think that Prince didn't use collaboration. Remember, even though he went against the advice, he gave Morris Day a copy of When Doves Cry, and Morris didn't like it, right? So even though he didn't take Morris's advice, Prince was using other people as a sounding board just to get a feel. That was it. I just wanted to talk about him really in that editing process.
Mm.
I think it's really important that you took the time to talk to us about it. And also, I mean, I know this, some people might think this is really tedious reading this, but this particular day is, I think, is really important and is an insight into his process. Excuse me. So I really appreciate that. All right. So next up is Wednesday. And
My
we're
draws.
yeah, that's all you, Michael Dean. Page
Okay.
26.
All right. My draw.
You
Sunset.
get to have the draws to yourself, brother. Get all them draws.
Well, you handle the education leading draws to me.
You're quick, Michael. You're very good.
All right. Sunset Sound Studio 2, 7 p.m. to 3:45 a.m. Booked 7 p.m. open. Producer Prince, artist The Time, although Prince was listed. Morris Day signed the work order. Engineer Prince, assistant engineer Bill Jackson. Quote from Jesse Jackson. Or excuse me, Jesse Jackson. That would be interesting. But this is Jesse Johnson. Somebody. Oh man, I didn't get me started. Okay. Jesse. What I learned from Prince about the studio was there are absolutely no rules. Stuff people said about spending $1 million on equipment and going to recording school, he flushed all that down the toilet. I love that. During the 1999 tour, Prince focused on creating a dynasty by promoting and selling his own music as well as music from The Time and Vanity 6. It appeared that Prince didn't want to just duplicate that success for his film project and tour. He wanted it to grow. With the 1999 tour, he started at a certain level and expanded, but the movie would give him a forum to prove to everyone that his last album's success wasn't a fluke. But before any of that, he had to create the music. So this week, Prince focused on completing the as yet untitled third album by The Time. Today, he started another track from scratch, My Draws. Setting up the drums was often the most time-consuming and challenging task for the engineer, especially during a session for The Time, because left-handed drummers like Morris Day required a different setup than right-handed drummers like Prince and Bobby Z. Morris played drums on My Draws, recalls Jackson, and if Prince wanted to play drums, I'd have to change everything, not just the mics, but the whole drum setup had to be moved around. The first hour was spent working on the basic tracks with Day on drums and Prince on bass. After that, Prince asked Day to start writing the lyrics. So Day grabbed a pad and a pen, and grab your pad and pen, and sat down on the couch in the control room. Man, I wish there was some cameras rolling. Ugh.
Oh, I wish.
Jackson recalls that Prince started recording on the Oberheim synth, which was also set up in the control room, but he kept looking over to see if Day had come up with any lyrics. That's great. We'd be working for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'd stop the tape, and Prince would say, Morris, what you got there? And there wouldn't be anything on the pad. Work a little bit more, and then he'd look down there and say, Morris, what you got? Got anything? Nothing. And this went on for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. He didn't write a word. And Prince is putting the rest of the song together. Everyone was in a good mood, and the recording was going very smoothly, but still no lyrics were being written.
Let's skip the quote from Jackson.
Jesse Johnson has recalled recording the solo, but Jackson has a different recollection. On this song, Jesse didn't do much. On this solo, I think it is Prince. I'm sure I remember recording that. I would swear that it was Prince playing guitar. I can remember what guitar he was playing. It was his Honor. Most of what he was playing on this record was on that guitar. He had a rack of Boss pedals, and he used them to get this squeezy, swirly sound. Whoever was actually playing the solo, Prince decided to bury it in the mix, much like he did on The Bird. Hayden. In 2016, days after Prince's passing, Jesse Johnson shared his memory of working with his friend. When Prince did the Time records, he wanted total control. The problem was who's going to argue with him about it, because who else knows how to make a record in this room other than him? He should have had total control. He was the only one that was successful. He was the only one who had made records. No one else had made records. He knew what to do. So listen, shut up, listen and learn, and that's what I did. Prince recorded his guide vocals on track 14, and Morris's lead vocals were placed on track 18 at the end of the session. My Draws was copied to a cassette for Prince's private archival purposes and to play outside the studio, but no real mix was done on this date. The song would become a favorite among many fans as well as those in the band, including Terry Lewis, who had been fired from the group a year earlier but would rejoin later in the decade. In 2010 interview on KMOJ, he expressed his affection for the track. I love My Draws. I don't know why. It's just a fun song to play. That's a really fun song to play. Status, My Draws, 4 minutes, 4 seconds, was released on the Times Ice Cream Castle album. It was edited, faded out early, 3 minutes and 43 seconds for the release of the B-side for The Bird. It was also released as a B-side for Chocolate 1990.
All right. So I'm one of those people who love this song. I loved it when the first time I heard it. It was actually it was my favorite song from Ice Cream Castle for me, even over The Bird and Jungle Love, even though I love Jungle Love a lot. And so that's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I want to say is reading. I mean, we all know that Prince did God vocals, but this is one of the God vocals I want to hear. So I can't stress enough. Originals Volume 2. And even better than that would be remastering all the time records and having Prince's versions alongside them for a time box set. That would make me very happy.
Say less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
I like the I'm sorry.
So Dwayne makes a point to say that Bill Jackson says that, Jesse didn't record the solo, but Jesse recalls recording the solo. So and people's, your memories can always get a little jumbled, but it would be interesting to hear in real time Jesse's version of My Draws. Like Jesse was playing guitar throughout, but you can't go back.
So, also, yeah. I like that, and I may be, just be showing my age here, but I like Jesse's point about Prince had made a record we had shut up, listen, and learn. And I think that today, with so much technology that allows young people to kind of be independent, things like internships and being an understudy of someone, I don't think young people really have the kind of attitude that Jesse Jackson is Jesse Johnson, keep hope alive is exuding. And because let's be clear, Jesse wasn't saying shut up and listen because he saw himself as an inferior musician, but this is a process I hadn't done. And I just think that here you have these everybody, I think everybody would say these are some of the best musicians on the planet, and yet they're willing to defer and learn. And I'm sure as you've had, D'Angelo, and teaching freshmen and sophomores in college and just being around young people, I just seen over time where nobody wants to just shut up and listen. Like everybody wants to walk in like they're a star, or they want to walk in like they've already made it. And I think a lot of times, what happens is you can become, I always ask people, do you want to be great or do you want to be famous? Because you can be famous with your talent, but if you don't have any knowledge to go with your talent, once your one song is off the radio, now you don't have any knowledge that Jesse's speaking to about really learning the craft of your thing. And so I just wanted to highlight that I think that's a really, like when you tell a young person to intern, they'll say, well, How much I'm gonna get paid? Well, it's an intern, stupid. That's why it's called intern. And you know that so many people now don't understand that knowledge. I remember Barry White talked about this, and I always remember this quote from Barry White. Barry White said, "The worst thing in the world is to walk into a room full of masters, thinking that you're a master, and learn quickly you are anything but a master." And he said that the way he kept from doing that is that when he walked into a room full of masters, he would just shut up and listen to masters talk. That's it. I'll be through.
Yeah, wow. I went through I went through the entire Jesse Johnson, at least the first 3 albums last night, just on a random. And listening to you talk on what we're reading about Jesse, it's just, I think like that whole camp at that time, those musicians were dope though. Like the brothers in the time were, obviously we go to find out they were on that level or just coming up. But I think, a couple things, like you said, Prince had the blueprint. Like he knew how to make them records. The Minneapolis, that style, he was the blueprint, and he was also the plug. What I mean by that, like you coming through that, you have to go through him to get put on. And he had the power, and he wanted them cats that seemed like, I don't know, who knew he had the power, like, and knew he was Yoda. Essentially, he was the master Jedi. Y'all just coming through. I already know y'all could probably pair this up, but I'm not gonna let y'all overplay me. Kind of, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot, like I'm the blueprint, but I'm cold. But I understand it. Y'all cold too. So I gotta let y'all know I'll play these records myself and let you play them live, but you playing me. Like there's a lot of form of, like, I can see how he was playing a lot of mental games with them. Like, yeah, y'all good. Matter of fact, come in the studio. Y'all got the right. Y'all don't learn the right to come into the studio while I'm making these songs. Now I'm not just giving them to you. I'm gonna let you kind of see how the cooking goes. I'm gonna let you throw a little ingredient in the pot a little bit. I may take it out when I serve it to the people, but it's on there. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of cool the ways that he was working, and I like how they were able to, like, okay, I done soaked up the game. Now I can go do my own thing. Like I don't learn the blueprint from the master. And you can even see, like, later Prince acknowledging that Jesse done, okay. Oh, Shockadelic. Yeah, okay. Let me throw a little tag in there just to let you know I see what you're doing. You don't even know how to use that name right. Let me show you how to use that title. And then you can see Jesse like, oh, okay, Pappy Willie, let me get that one. I heard Prince's version. I'm gonna just do his version and put it on my record, right? And he doing the same thing Prince did to him, but now he took a Prince song and he replayed it on his own record and released it before Prince could, and based it off of Prince's version. You really see the game. They was kind of playing with each other. It's interesting. It's a master student, and then the student sort of kind of rises to the level of the master to maybe challenge what he's doing. Anyway, I'm done.
And just one last point on that. Somebody emailed me this thought that everything that it compensates all of this is that the also big difference is that these are musicians who want to be musicians. These are not musicians who are doing music to get a clothing deal. These are not musicians who are doing music to get something else. And I think that today, and we also have to understand that streaming, and let's be clear, you can't make as much money on just music today. We understand it, right? Now that the physical thing of music is gone, right? Records are gone. They don't make as much money. But I think that also the mentality of these people were musicians. Like, this was their job. They wanted to be musicians. They weren't trying to use music as a hustle. And I think one of the things that limits a lot of music today and limits how people look at music and how people see themselves is that now for a lot of people, music is just a commercial to go do something else. And I think that that's where the details, right? These spending all day on crafting these 30 seconds of a song, right? That nobody may not notice, but as you said, Brother Dean, it's there. And it impacts not only the studio version, but it impacts how you play. And I think that that's something that's just lost. I'll shut up.
Interesting.
All right, so there's several comments in the chat that I want to bring up. One is from Blake Brown that's saying, learning the craft is important, but Alexander O'Neill was right too. You got to have that paper. Cost of living is something serious. Yep. So, and then Mila follows up and says, it depends on the internship. Some places are asking quite a lot of their interns to the point where they really should get paid. And that is correct. And then the other thing, there are a couple other comments. Let me see if I can find them really quickly. Oh my God, did I miss them? Hold on one second. They were really good. Oh, Sakia said, I love this. Working with your friends can be hard too. So that I thought that was a really good point. And I also liked Ricky's comment about Jesse versus Bill Jackson. And Ricky says, I believe Jesse. He seems to be clear and truthful on what he played on and what he didn't. So I think those are two very good points. All right, so we're going to move on to, we're finally at Wednesday, where there's more. Let's see, we went through Wednesday with my drawers. So now we're on Thursday with my drawers and Ode to Tricky, and I will get started on page 228. So my drawers, overdubs, Ode to Tricky, working title for Tricky, not listed, but basic tracking and overdubs. Oh, I totally missed this. Untitled instrumental in various takes. So I got to update my slides. Sunset Sound Studio to 7 p.m. to 4 a.m., 7 p.m. open. Producer Prince, artist The Time. Prince was listed. Morris Day signed the work order. Engineer Prince, assistant engineer Bill Jackson. And I love this quote from Wendy. Morris was the guy who can make him laugh, meaning Prince, more than anyone on the planet. That's a great quote. All right, so Thursday, Prince was likely in a great mood, having been nominated for 2 Grammy Awards earlier in the week for his work on 1999 and International Lover. And he and Day were probably enjoying the upbeat vibe. I want to take a hot second. I work on multiple projects at different times, and it can be discombobulating to like be working on something in the future while still trying to deal with something that had happened. So I'm curious, you know, like, was Prince excited about these Grammy Awards? Was he like on to the next? And I also remember reading something about Jay Dilla about he never went to award shows because he would rather be working in the studio. Like he didn't want to take the time away from his craft just to accept an award. So I wonder what Prince's thoughts were at this particular time, because I'm sure they changed over the years of how he thought about getting nominated for awards and winning awards and all that. Okay. Although Day and Prince had some serious disagreements over the last few months, it seemed like they shared a friendship, although sometimes strained, and a mutual desire to finish the Purple Rain project as well as the third album for The Time. After losing most of the time, perhaps Prince was working hard to keep the core of the band from leaving. The 4 of us, me, Jimmy, Monte, and Terry, were needed, according to Jelly Bean Johnson, but Morris and Jesse were the 2 centerpieces, were his 2 trophies. That's what Jelly Bean says. Everybody else was interchangeable. Again, this is Jelly Bean Johnson speaking. That's a really interesting quote that we don't really have time to dive into, because we could talk about that alone for like an hour, but really interesting quote. Day may have agreed with that assessment of his role in the band, but although he was vital to the project, he wasn't happy with his input. I did as much as I was allowed to do, he explained in 1984. I could have done more. I think that you can actually look at the time, the whole project, and what you're seeing is me. The songs that I didn't write, if I didn't write them, I inspired the titles. The things that people saw me do is where the lyrics came from. The humor and the attitude, they all came from me. So whether I wrote the songs or not, it all came from me, all the sayings and everything.
You make it sound like some culture vulture type stuff. Like, go get the cat that in the neighborhood that be doing all that. Hey. and then just create the whole vibe based off of him, but you own it. But that's
I,
your
ju- I just I just got that image in my head of Eddie Murphy impersonating Little Richard at the Purple Rain. It's all me. Prince is me.
hilarious.
Prince is all me.
Yes. Thank-
So Morris saying that's his swag basically. Like that's, but you get to do the swag though too. Like you still doing it, but I understand what he's saying. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but I guess that's what I was saying earlier. A lot of this to me reminds me of like the same like Palpatine and Darth Vader. Like the lead cat ain't gonna never let you come up over him, but he'll use you to keep the other ones in line and play the game. And no, you fire. No, you. But you know, it's just a wild little thing he was doing with them cats, man. It was interesting.
Yeah. All right. Further overdubs, including Prince's addition of drums, as well as Dave's vocal fixes and pickups, were recorded for My Draws during the evening. Background vocals were recorded with Jill Jones, because someone had noted that Jill was on this track, and yes, she was. And she recalls standing around the microphone with Morris Day as they chanted together. I particularly remember the yelling of the My Draws part, which was pretty funny. And I would change my voice, like singing my draws, just to make it sound like you were all different people. And that is just a testament to Jill's vocals, that she could really sound like different people. During a break in the session, Prince and Day took in a concert. It is likely that they went to see Genesis, who were playing a 3-night stand at the Forum. Isn't that interesting to go from Tricky to Genesis? I'll continue. Like Chlorine Bacon Skin, recorded on March 27, 1983, Tricky was an ad-lib studio jam involving Prince and Day that contained a similar beat. And I'm not going to read that. 3 or 4 hours later, they come back and they are giggling so hard that they can hardly speak. And they've been talking about something on the way over, and they had an idea, and he couldn't even talk because he was laughing so hard. And he said, set up the drums, because Morris was going to play drums. It was set up the other way because Prince was playing drums earlier. So I had to run out there and flip everything back to left-handed. And Prince said, get me the bass. And we had this jazz bass that we rented from SIR, Studio Instrument Rentals, and it was great. Prince told Jackson, you've got to get a mic for both of us. So he set up a Neumann U87 for each of them. They were both about to bust because they wanted to put this thing on tape for them, and I had no idea what was going on. And as soon as I had it set up, he said, roll the tape. And I started the 24 track, and he just started going through his thing, and Morris is singing while he is playing drums, and Prince is singing little tidbits. They are both kind of laughing in one part, and we eventually went back and added a little laughter. So there are 3 tracks of laughing. They were splitting at the seams when we were done. They were busting out laughing all night. After the keyboards were overdubbed, including a section of the theme from The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, which is one of my favorite parts of the song, Prince asked for any sound effects of birds. Jackson located a clip containing seagulls, and they were recorded on track 14. Hold on, I need some water.
Oh Lord. The spirit of the track got you going.
Yeah. Prince also wanted to hear a toilet flushing at the end of the song. So Jackson hooked together multiple cables and dangled a mic above the men's bathroom down the hall. Jill Jones was visiting, so she was stationed nearby and told to wait for her cue. Can you imagine waiting by the toilet, waiting to be told to flush? Okay. When we got near the end of the song, Jackson said, Prince pointed at her and she ran into the bathroom and flushed it. It was perfect and it ran on forever.
You want me to flush it on the upbeat or the downbeat? What you want to flush out?
Exactly. There were these really old pipes and they hissed. He even said old pipes. Jackson continues, the song was about George Clinton and his greasy fingers and that old jacket he is always wearing. And it was all done in good fun. It was just like a joke thing. And I don't think there was any reference to him by name, so no one would know. I asked him what he wanted to call it, and he said Tricky Dick. The song, which was listed as Ode to Tricky, but shortened to Tricky, for release contains many of the same elements as Chlorine Bacon Skin, including variations on some of the lyrics. When I look in the mirror, I see your ugly face. At the end of the session, rough mixes for both tracks were completed and copied to 2 TDK SA60 tapes, one for Day and one for Prince. In the past, Prince often created several copies of a song that he could give to the time and tell them to learn it. Although it wasn't yet completely obvious, the need to gather the band to learn songs to perform live was becoming less and less likely. Luckily, Prince had been finding new ways to energize himself with other drummers. Okay, this is an instrumental that I missed. Earlier in the shift, Prince revisited one of the tracks he recorded with Sheila for January 9th. He recorded piano and he was writing the song. He would often scat nonsensical lyrics and vocal sounds based on how the song was inspiring him to feel. This reminds me of Dark Side. Like I love when he like on Dark Side, how he's doing the and then when he goes to Blood on the Sheets, you know, he removes all the vocal scats, but I love those vocal scats. FYI. Okay. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Moving from one time period to another. Like you have to, and these improvisational placeholders would be used as a reference when he dialed in the final lyrics. On these different takes, he was ad-libbing phrases about going down the road, it's funky now, and feeling lonely. Many in his inner circle were noticing that Sheila was bringing to his music. She was the seasoning. According to Prince's bodyguard, Wally Safford, rest in peace. We missed you so much. Who was in the studio with Prince on a daily basis during this period? I call it the Lowry seasoning or the sriracha. She put the sriracha on it. She complimented him. I wouldn't say she changed him because Prince did the changing himself. Prince constantly changed the music, energy, time. Every time he came out with a song, but they worked good together. Love these quotes from Wally. I love Wally's book. If you can get your hand on a copy, I would highly recommend it. Status, Ode to Tricky, 3 minutes and 12 seconds, was released as Tricky as a B-side of Ice Cream Castles. During live shows in 2015, Day occasionally sat behind the drums and played the track. The 2 takes of the untitled instrumentals, 3 minutes and 18 seconds and 3 minutes and 41 seconds, remain unreleased, but a similar drum roll intro would be used in Old Friends for Sale, a song he'd recorded in 1985. It has been suggested that Prince and Day saw George Clinton play on this evening, but there is no record of a performance of Clinton or any of his bands on this date.
So, yeah, I was going to say, isn't the myth or the mythology behind this is that Tricky was a response to, and I can't remember, I don't think it's Atomic Dog, but it was something where there, you know, as George was known to do, to give out types of dogs, and it was about cats. And I think he said Morris the cat or something like that. And that Tricky was supposedly a response to George saying Morris the cat on another track. At least that's kind of how the mythology goes,
That's
right?
kind of what I heard too. Yeah, kind of like almost like a little diss thing or something.
Right,
Which is wild.
Right. And you know, it's cool because, you know, when you're talking about making things palatable to younger generations, right? It's like you say, okay, these things that y'all think are new to your generation, no, there was always competition. That was all, you know, you forget about the Parliament song, Let's Take It to the Stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are 2 ancient Chinese writers. When I introduce them to my students in my World Lit class, I literally say, this is the first Tupac and Biggie. Like, these dudes literally wrote this poem to each other in 500 BC. So, but I think that the difference is that, and I think this is where you're focused on your craft. The reason it never had to get violent or overly personal, because it really was about mastery of your skill, you know? And I think that what happens is when it's not about just the art, and I think that's what gets missing. I think that's why this book is so important, is that it really is a testament to craftsmanship, right? I have to give Brother Tudor his props on this, that this text is really a testament to craftsmanship. And here you have masters of crafts going back and forth, but what's center is the craft, right? Let's be really clear that even if you want to call it diss tracks or you want to call it going back and forth, whatever you call it, what's center is it's about elevating the art. And one of the things that I say about Purple Rain in my book, and I've said in other, is that one thing that gets missed about Purple Rain, that movie is about making music. That's what that movie is about. And you cannot miss that point that Purple Rain is a movie about the love of music and the making of music. And if we're going to remember Purple Rain, we have to remember it as a love letter to musicians who love music. That's it. I'll shut up.
Thank you for that, Celie. I think that's really important to point out because we're going to talk a little later for just a hot second about the announcement this week of turning Purple Rain into a musical. And I do hope that the music remains the focus of it. So I just want to really quickly show you. Let me see, put myself. And this is also, I also do this for me, to be honest, just to make sure I still have what I have. This is my copy of Tricky here. If you can see, I don't know if that's it. And then it basically is the B-side of Ice Cream Castles. And just like with the When Doves Cry single, it basically says from the forthcoming Warner Brothers album, Ice Cream Castle. And then we know that the name of the song is with the S. Morris Day is listed as the songwriter. Morris Day is also listed as a songwriter for Tricky, and it's on Warner Brothers label. All right, so we are now at Friday. Okay, 1:17 because Kim gave me my time check. And who wants to read about Ice Cream Castles? Celie, you gonna do it? You need to unmute yourself.
All right, I got my. Here you go. So,
yep.
Inspector Gadget.
There you go. Do you know these things are different? Like if you flip them over, I didn't know that. Like one shows a little bit differently than the other. I had no idea. I'm 54 years old and just found it out. I was today years old to know that when you use a magnifying glass, they actually look different on different sides. All right.
Hilarious.
So Ice Cream Castles listed as my draws, basic tracking, Sunset Sound, Studio 2, 8 p.m. to 6 p.m., 7 p.m. to open, meaning they was gonna be there all the day. Producer Prince, artist The Time, Prince crossed out, engineer Prince, and then good old Bill Jackson as the assistant engineer. Quote from Jesse Johnson: "Me and Prince were so close, and we had so much fun. And all honest to God, when I think of Prince, I think about those days from '81 to '84, and I'm telling you, we did a lot of laughing." End quote.
All right.
Jesse Johnson.
Skip the first 3 paragraphs and start with "At this point, the Times' new album."
Okay, cool. At this point, the Times' new album didn't have a title, let alone title track. Prince dug up a song that Johnson and Day had recorded in Minneapolis called Old and Ignorant. Emphasis on the G in ignorant. And look at, and notice what I like was Brother Tootle said, and for the white people, that would be old and ignorant. Like I love the way he does it in the book. It's old and ignorant. Oh, and for us white people, that would be ignorant, just in case you couldn't follow. All right, let's move along. Shout out to Brother Tootle for that
breakdown.
There you go, for that code switching. Go ahead, brother. I'm gonna give you some props on that. You are officially invited to the picnic. Just don't bring no potato salad with raisins in it. No raisins.
Hilarious.
Potato salad. All right, let's move on.
Lord.
It was during that period when Prince was like, quote, "Yeah, you can record at the house," end quote. And so it was one of the songs that Morris and I cut. Jesse explains in the interview on Questlove's Supreme. Boot, boot, boot. Prince would always go do, or faster pace, do, and just thought that was like the most genius thing. And that's where Ice Cream Castles came from this song that we did called Old and Ignorant. As they had done for several collaborations, Prince, Morris, and Jesse spent the first hour laying down the basic tracks of the song for the initial run through. Prince played piano, Jesse was on guitar, and Morris was behind the drum kit. Quote, I had a lot of creative input. I played the drums and helped craft a lot of the stuff. Remembers Day. Continues with the quote, I was there every moment of putting that song together. Not to take credit for Prince, it was his vision early on. It was an alter ego thing, things he felt he couldn't get away with, and direction he was going to go in. End quote. Prince guided the trio by humming where he wanted to eventually place vocals, stating where the musical changes would be, counting them through the middle parts, and when he liked the songs, something specific, such as some of Jesse's guitar work, he let him know that he was doing a great job. The groove drifted slightly into James Brown's 1976 track, Body Heat, but only briefly before Prince ended the song with his customarily on the one. Prince recorded the vocals, but there is no indication that he was planning to use much of the original lyrics from Old and Ignorant because the only actual words that made it to the tape from his attempt were the chorus Ice Cream Castles in the Summertime. For the master version, the track began with a few seconds of Johnson's riffing before Dave's drum kicked in. The rest was fairly sparse, especially for uh, a song by the time. Oh, especially for a song by the time. Excuse me. Uh, by the time the song was finished, bass, OB8, and synth drums were also added to the track. The remainder of the session was spent overdubbing this still officially untitled instrumental, and it is likely that other songs were given embellishments during this session as well. A quick mix was completed and part of a single cassette, so Prince could write the full lyrics before the next session. Status. The instrumental, 7 minutes and 5 seconds, was eventually Ice Cream Castles. Dave's vocals were added, and the song was released on the Times Ice Cream Castles album, 7 minutes and 31 seconds, which contains 30 seconds of music box sounds replacing Johnson's brief guitar warm up. It was edited for release as a single, 3 minutes and 37 seconds, and a music video was made for it. The video was a final promotional tool created by the band for several years. The theme of the song was about something good melting away, so the title of the album and song proved incredibly prophetic when Morris Day quit the time in the late spring and early summer of '84, weeks before Purple Rain premiered. The rehearsal demo of Ice Cream Castle, 6 minutes and 14 seconds, remains unreleased.
Mm.
All right. So I've already said this. So I'm going to get old, but I'm going to keep saying it. I want to hear Prince's version of Ice Cream Castles. That would be really lovely to hear. How do you guys feel about the track Ice Cream Castles?
Me, one of my favorite time tracks of all time. I love the song. That instrumental that said in the status is out there, and I play that regularly. Like, just to hear the music and them playing and stuff. But I love the song. I think it's incredible. I remember when it came out, I felt like it was, like, this is the time. I was like, man, this is like so melodic and it's not this, super jammed. I was just like, wow, they on some kind of mellow, but it was a groove. Like, I thought it should have been bigger personally.
It was and this, I guess there's a difference between if you live somewhere where you ride cars a lot.
Mhm.
We call this car ride music.
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, it reminded me of "I Don't Want to Leave You," right? Just
Mm.
because of the melodic, as Brother Dean said, the melodic groove. So this was a ultimate car jam for me. Like when I heard it, the first thing I said is like, yeah, I'm gonna be driving in my car
Mhm.
listening to Ice Cream Castle. And it was, it's that it had that diamond in the back, sunroof's top, digging in the scene with a gangster lean. Like it was one of those grooves where it was just funkified enough to be pimpish, but maybe a pimp on Sunday,
Just
when
right,
he
yeah.
when he didn't when he didn't gave the employees a little break and we just gonna stroll for the sake of it, ladies.
There you go. There you go.
So Mike,
I'm,
go
I'm
ahead.
sure I just got canceled in 27 places.
It's okay. You're not canceled here, Celie. So Michael, you bring up a point. When I first heard this in real time, and again, you have to put this in context. I'm 13 years old, and my musical ears are growing, whatever. When I first heard it, I was like, this doesn't sound like the time, just like you did.
Mhm.
And it took me a really long time to get in the song Ice Cream Castles. And that's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards my draws, because Prince always had, that guitar element throughout, his entire catalog. And the Ice Cream Castles really as an album really didn't gel for me until I got the 45 Tricky.
Okay.
With Tricky on it. And that's kind of like what really held me for a long time. Because I won't go into, we'll talk about something. I don't want to derail the conversation.
Real quick, I would just throw, I think too, listening to it, years later, you can hear, I hear the growth, I guess, in Prince's playing and his ability as a songwriter and as in the pocket, urgent funk as the first two records, really that first record. This is many years later, not that many years later, but he has advanced in his playing and production so much since those early time records that it has to sound, this is just how they would have to sound. There's no way he could duplicate that other stuff from years ago. And that's what part about I love it. Like it shows, like, if you believe the concept of this band, that they're evolving or something, because they sound more fuller or something, not knowing at the time it really was just one dude's thing. But go ahead.
And I can't remember, so I want to be clear, I may be confusing myself because I can't remember whether it was the video for this song or whether it was the actual movie Purple Rain. But the only other thing was, for me, either seeing the video or watching the movie, knowing the time, when I saw the time, the first thought in my head was, Hopper, who the hell these people is? Not Hopper, Hopper, who these people? It was shocking, but I can't remember, as you with your memory, whether it was when the time first take the stage, I go, wait, that ain't Jimmy and Terry, who the hell, that ain't Monty. And but I can't remember whether it was the video or the movie. But that being said, I bring that up only because it's amazing that didn't distract me from how much I still like the track. Right. I will say that as much as visually Jimmy, Terry, and Monty, in my eyesight were the time, musically, and I guess this gets to who's actually doing the playing and the production and all of that, musically, it was still a time record. It was so, but yeah, but I just that so whenever I do listen to Ice Cream Castle, that is a memory that I get is Hopper, who these people. All right, that's enough.
All right, so we're gonna go to Friday. Michael, if you don't mind reading, it's page 270. I'm sorry, not 233.
233. You talking about Saturday?
Oh, I'm sorry, Friday, 231. Sorry.
All right. Ice Cream Castles listed as my draws. Basic tracking, Sunset Sound Studio 2, 8 p.m., 6 a.m., 7 p.m. open. Producer Prince, artist The Time, Prince crossed out. Engineer Prince, assistant engineer Bill Jackson, my man Bill. All right, quote Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Johnson.
That he is in my mind like that. I salute to Jesse Jackson.
Up with hope, down with dope.
Yes, sir.
Keep hope alive.
But 30 years from now, they'll be doing cool. Okay, and Umar Johnson said, oh,
I think it's because of Bill Jackson, But I know you. Never mind. Go ahead.
All right. Me and Prince were so close. We had so much fun. Oh, wait, did we already read this part, didn't we?
No.
Oh, okay. Me and Prince were so close and we had so much fun and all. And honest to God, when I think of Prince, I think about those days. I thought Celie read this.
No.
Yeah, I mean, did I read you?
Did he? Okay. So yeah, that's right. Saturday then. 2:30. I was right. 2:33. You're right. I'm sorry. 2:33.
All right now.
I said 2:30, but you
drinking in that cup, girl.
Oh my God. I'm drinking. I'm drinking water.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ice Cream Castles, vocals and overdubs.
I'm glad we're Saturday. We're at Saturday.
Yes. Sunset Sound Studio 2. Y'all already. I'm going to the quote. Okay. One of my favorites is Ice Cream Castles. Back then, of course, we had women on the brain 24/7, the different flavors, and that's kind of how that happened. And at that time, there were groups like The Fix and The Cure doing those haunting melodic songs, and we wanted to do one of our own. Quote, that was Morris Day. Terry Christian was brought back to engineer Day's vocal overdubs of the lyrics Prince had written earlier in the day. Additional instruments were also added, including a multi-layered keyboard riff that accents Jesse's guitar. At the end of the shift, a rough mix was completed and copies of Ice Cream Castles and My Draws was sent to the Warner Brothers vault. The castle in this song was not likely influenced by Darling Nikki's castle home, but rather by Joni Mitchell, as Prince borrowed from the opening lines from her 1969 song, Both Sides Now, from the album Clouds. Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air. Prince turned the lyrics into a laid back request for better race relations, at least when it comes to dating. A side note about this session, this was the last new recording of the time for several years. Technically, there was additional work done on the album over the next few days and in early May when a few of the album tracks were edited down. But for the most part, this was the last new song Day recorded with Prince until they reunited for the unreleased Time album Corporate World in 1989. During this period, Prince had 24/7 access to the room, and the work orders reflected this, listing them as locked out, which literally means that everyone else is locked out of the room during the period in which it is reserved. This became a common practice for Prince when working at Sunset Sound. There you go.
All right. So I have something I want to show. And I was very excited when Rhino re-released Ice Cream Castle, and they had colored vinyl. And does anyone in the chat remember what the colored vinyl was for Ice Cream Castle while you're thinking about it? It was Neapolitan. This is one of my favorite colored vinyls of Ice Cream Castle. So it's so beautiful.
Man, that label is bringing so many memories back. Show that label. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You just took me back to 9th grade. Look at that label.
Isn't it beautiful?
Oh man. Look at the detail. I'm sorry, but that's what we lose with streaming. Like, I'm not, there's got to be a way that you can kind of combine, but with streaming, you lose so much of the physical symbolism and imagery of the art that to which we were used to. Right?
Yes, and also the back of the Time covers were always my favorite.
Yeah.
And this is obviously the cover, and then you have, wrong side, the yellow spine, which I absolutely adored. Sheila had like the teal blue. Apollonia 6 had like the magenta. And so, Celia, I really appreciate what you said. And that's one of the things that I don't like about streaming is that you don't get all of the visual stimuli and memories of getting a new record. And so one of the reasons why I like to share the vinyl is to, again, for the newbies or people who may not collect vinyl, maybe you'll understand a little bit why some people are vinyl heads, because it's just so darn beautiful. I mean, one, two, it sounds amazing. Even though I know most people will say, well, streaming sounds just as good, but it's a difference. So
quick question. This is for people in the chat and for you too. I want to see if this was just a Southern thing or maybe even a Mississippi thing. All my uncles, they used to take fishnet, like fishnet stockings, right? But they would take the fishnet and they would put it on the ceiling, and they would periodically put albums. So you would have albums in the fishnet hanging from the ceiling. Did anybody else? So you're shaking your head.
My uncles, yes. Uncle Carl had that. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So we know what's happening in the South. So I can't see the chat because I'm on my phone now. So the folks in the chat, did y'all have uncles and aunts who did the fishnet and put the albums in the fishnet hanging from the ceiling? But my brother D was looking like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was like, what's the fishnet signify? What was that from? Do you know?
That was just, I think it was just see-through. You know, you
Yeah,
could
it
see
was
the
just
album
see-through.
covers.
And you could catch them. You mean, like you could
Yeah.
put them in whatever order you wanted, and
Gotcha.
it was very malleable, flexible. But yeah, and speaking of my uncles and Fishnet, they also made their own speakers.
Yeah.
They had these
Yeah.
massive speakers that they made. And unfortunately, I remember the night one of them fell because they had them mounted on the walls. It fell on one of my uncles. And he was, my grandmother took him through it because, she didn't like them, hanging these speakers on the walls anyway. And she was like, I told you. Why he's like bleeding, like she's just fussing at him.
Told you to go kill your fool self. Told you to, boy. Look at it. Look at it. And if you die, don't come crying to me. If you get knocked out, don't come crying to me.
That was my grandmother. You got it, Celie.
Look, okay, as an aside, I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Out in the woods. Stepped on a nail. The nail went through my shoe. All the way into my foot. I hopped with my friends. We were so scared of my mama. I hopped with my friends a mile and a half home. And I'm so scared of my mom. I'm outside with a nail through my shoe. And everybody's scared to go. My mama walked outside, took one look at that nail through my shoe, knew I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, and looked at me and said, I hope your damn foot fall off now. Get your ass in the car and go to the hospital. That's literally what she said. I hope your your foot fall off, but get in the car and let's go to the hospital. Which one of these, mama? Which one? Make up your mind. Anyway, that's my own.
All right. So Celie, we got some answers for you in the chat. So Kim is saying, I don't remember my uncles doing that in Texas. But L Boogie is saying, yes, uncles, aunts. Andre is saying, in Detroit, H to the N.
Hell no.
And Lisa is saying, I have friends that hung fishnet but put other things in them. And
what other things? What other things? Do tell. Do tell.
Oh, Lord.
Share with the group. Did you bring enough for everyone?
Yeah.
Dorothy is saying, I've never seen or heard that in New York City.
Get your country ass down.
Yeah. Look at all northern people. Look at all northern people talking about us. They make fun of us in the South. That's all right.
Oh my God.
What kind of country foolishness is that?
Okay, so the other things are stuffed animals, for the record, of Lisa.
Okay. All right.
That's some down south.
And Tracy has said, definitely saw that in Alabama. That's where I was born and raised, Alabama. And yes, the Neapolitan vinyl is gorgeous. And then we got a couple nail comments. Yes, to being somewhere you're not supposed to be, and the subsequent shenanigans. And then there was another one that said, I can't find it now. All right. So just really quickly, I wanted to talk about the track listing of Ice Cream Castle versus the order that it was recorded. So first of all, one thing that I loved about the Time records, the first three, were that I think all three had 3 songs per side. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that's important is because you could have longer songs.
Yep.
You could just jam. So at one point in time, there used to be less songs on an album compared to today when you have like 20 songs. And sometimes even more with interludes and all this kind of jazz. So anyway, I love this format for the Time in particular because they used to jam. All right, so for the track listing, side A, we got Ice Cream Castle's My Draws, Chili Sauce, side A. Side B was Jungle Love, If the Kid Can't Make You Come, and The Bird. But the order in which they were recorded, Jungle Love came first. And that's Prince's recording of Jungle Love. Obviously, there's Jesse, which is before that. And then The Bird came in April of 83. Chili Sauce, also April 83. And The Kid Can't Make You Come, April of 83. So almost a year later, Prince finishes this project with these two songs from this week, which were My Draws and Ice Cream Castle. So that's one thing. All right. And then this is pretty much a Sunset Sound record, with the exception of the studio version of The Bird, where there was basic tracking at Kiowa Trail. But other than that, most of it's Sunset Sound. And we are finally at the end. We're not at the end, but we're at the end of What Did Prince Do This Week so far in 1984. 6 is wrong. It needs to be 7 because I forgot about that untitled instrumental. So I'm going to change that. And what I've started doing is you'll have access to a database instead of listening to songs like I did before. So if you click on the slide in the deck, which you can find on the website, you can go to the database and you can start searching and all that jazz. So this is what's been recorded, and I need to add that additional untitled instrumental. And let's just take a really short other music break with the quickness. And I gotta say that something extraordinary happened this week, at least for me, and that is D'Angelo finally released a new track featuring the incredible, the amazing Kendra Foster, and it's almost 10 minutes long, and I love it. So again, if you click on this image, it will take you to the YouTube stream of it, and it's also in our weekly accompanying playlist. So I wanted to hear from Michael Dean and C. Lee if you guys had heard that D'Angelo has risen and what you guys thought about the track.
Definitely heard it. Played it a few times already. Played it in the car. I'm a big D'Angelo fan. So I love new music. I don't know if not what I expected, but I love that it's not what I expected because I'm just kind of slowly really letting it take over me and getting into it. The only thing I would say negative about it, and I like Jay-Z, I didn't really find him necessary on this track personally, but aside from that, yeah, I want more. I hope they say, okay, D'Angelo's got a whole nother project about to drop. That's what I want. So I hate the little tidbits, but yeah, this D'Angelo's dope.
What about you?
Sadly for me, I've been following the press around the Book of Clarence, but I have not had a chance to hear the new song yet. I just haven't. It's been under my radar, so I'm gonna go as soon as I hop off here. Go and check it out. But like everybody else, glad to see that he has new music out. Looking forward to seeing it. Right. So yeah, and just glad that this is coupled with the fact that they have "I Would Die for You" on the soundtrack. So this is now going to make that soundtrack even more. And I haven't heard all of it, but from what I've heard about what they've done to "I Would Die," Prof Duff, she's on my newsletter, so she knows I'm not a fan of cover songs. I hate cover songs. But this sounds like a cover that I like. Okay, they did something that I think a good cover is only a song that makes you see the possibilities of what the original wasn't. And I think that with "I Would Die for You," they're doing something really great. So, and somebody putting in that the film is great. I have not had a chance to see the film yet, so I'm looking to go see that as well. So yeah, I'm as soon as we get off, I'm gonna go check that out.
I'm sorry, you said there's a cover of "I Would Die for You" on the soundtrack?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, if you go to the trailer, if you go on to the official trailer,
I heard that
one of the official trailers also has it there. You can hear it. And I think you'll be really pleased with what they're doing with it.
Interesting.
So
they updated it for 21st century.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing about this movie? Because a lot of people are confused about this movie. The Book of Clarence, it's not explicitly about this, but I think one of the things that people are missing about it, because I've seen people writing about this movie. Okay, so Yeshua. Okay, Yeshua. A lot of people use the word Jesus. Nobody in the history of people with names was actually named that. There's nobody was named that. I'm not going to get into phonetics and all that. His actual name would have been Yeshua. So what people don't understand is when Yeshua was pronouncing himself as the Christ, he was not the only dude doing that. There were a lot of people who had these original Hebrew readings were saying, I am the Christ. So the book of Clarence is essentially about that. It's about
Mm.
this was a time when there were a lot of people saying that they were the Christ, and how that worked and how that got into cultural identities. So it's a really interesting peek into those times. And I think that gets lost out of the whole Christian and Islamic and Jewish narrative in the culture of people understanding that there was a battle for what was going to be the supreme religion. So you
Mm.
have one, people saying, I am the Son of God, I am the Son of Man, I am the Christ, and these religions battling for the number one religion. And so I think it's important to have that understanding, historical understanding, when you then walk into, because if not, some of the stuff will be either nonsensical, or you'll think, oh, they're just making a joke, and you won't get the historical context and why then that connects with today, not only what's happening in the Middle East today, but what's happening with people just battling around. Because a lot of times we think stuff that's happening today didn't happen 5,000 years ago. And the one thing about both the Quran and the Christian Bible is that they both are true, that there's nothing new under the sun. They just are being recontextualized. And I think if you have that historical understanding, this movie will make a lot more sense to you. I'll shut up.
Mm.
Thank you so much for that context. I think it's really important. And Tanja, said in the chat too that the film is great. And I personally would like. I'm going to go see it on Sunday, and I think it's really important that we actually go see it this weekend in particular because it's opening weekend. And I like to support art that I want to see more of.
Yep.
And I really love one, the director, is it James Samuel? And because he did Harder They Fall.
Yeah.
And it was like Lakeith and Idris and all these people that I just love. Say anything Lakeith Stanfield is in, I am going to see it, like bar none. And then on top of that, you also have Omar Sy, who is Lupin. If you watch Lupin on Netflix or anything like that, he's one of my favorite actors. So it's really important to support this movie, in my personal opinion, and because the soundtrack is really phenomenal. Because another song on this soundtrack that I was just like, when I saw her name, I was just so excited. Alice Smith is my favorite living female vocalist. And I was just saying to myself last week, what is going on with Alice Smith? I haven't heard anything from her. And lo and behold, she appears on this soundtrack. So I'm grateful to the director. The only thing and I love the song. The only thing I will say, though, is that her voice is buried in the mix, and I wish that it was higher in the mix. And going back to D'Angelo, a couple people in the chat, and I posted it, I'm sorry, I don't remember who, said that the D'Angelo track is very reminiscent of Parliament P-Funk. Very much so. Also, I also got JB vibes because we know that, D'Angelo is a huge JB fan in terms of repeating the same lyrics over and over again. That is total JB to its core. So I really love that. And then also, I felt like it was also an ode to Prince with all the layering of the beautiful vocals like Prince used to do. And obviously a lot of other people, but we also know that D'Angelo is a Prince fan. So I'm so happy that Tracy, that somebody else loves Alice Smith. If you ever have an opportunity to see Alice Smith live, run, because she is incredible and she just doesn't get. Yes, DC's own Alice Smith, really, really amazing, amazing vocals. Sorry. Okay.
Next. And I'll just add that it's also important to see movies like this with brown people. And I'll just leave that there. This, I'll just say this. These are all Abrahamic religions. And so people don't understand the concept. And I'm always amazed that people who serve or practice certain religions, they'll get upset. But Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they're all Abrahamic religions. these they come from the father of Abraham. So these three religions come from the father of Abraham. That's why they're called Abrahamic religions. They come from the land of brown people. I mean, you can't get around that. And so it's great to see this movie with brown people in them, because I'm getting a little tired of seeing movies. Like, if you see movies set in places and you look on the walls and you see the ancient drawings of the people, and then you look at the actors and the actors don't look like the ancient drawings of the people on the wall. And at some point, we need actors who look like the drawings of the people on the wall. That's it. I'll shut up.
Thank you for that. All right, let me see what's next up in my slides here. Okay. All right. So this is obviously the announcement of the week that Purple Rain is going to be adapted as a stage musical. Don't really want to talk about it because Michael Dean, do you want to talk about like what you're going to do?
Well, I was going to say this. I think you should talk about it, but we're going to get into we're going to have a Prince podcast. We'll bring this up and talk about it for sure. But I'm curious what people in the chat and Celie. I think I already know what Celie's take is on this. There's a thing going around. I went viral almost. A quote.
So I will say this: if there's anybody who is in the chat that doesn't get my newsletter, I have a newsletter. It's not a Prince-centric newsletter, but of course I discuss Prince a lot. I think it was Tuesday I did a special newsletter where I released this. So if anybody would like to get that newsletter, you can go to my website and just email me. I'll just send you that commentary. But the short version is, we should not be compromising or changing the nature of things just to appease people. If you're saying that something is worthy to be disseminated generation to generation, it either is worthy to be disseminated generation to generation, or it isn't worthy to be disseminated generation to generation. And based on what we are getting, based on what's trickling out, based on what the playwright is saying, that they're basically going to butcher Purple Rain under the illusion or the notion of being politically correct. And we've had this discussion before, so it's not like we haven't had this discussion about how art, does art age well and do things age well. I think there's a difference between updating something versus completely butchering something to sell somebody else's political agenda. And I think that what's happening to Purple Rain is that they are butchering Purple Rain to promote other people's agenda rather than celebrating the vision of, and I want to say Albert Magnoli and Blinn and Prince. I think when you're talking about this movie, there are three people. There's Prince's version, Albert Magnoli's version, and then Blinn. And the three of them, they created what many of us feel is a great movie. It's a masterpiece, right? And when I say masterpiece, I don't mean in the way that it identifies its times. And to make certain changes, because one of the things that you run the risk of when you change things, what makes the moment in Purple Rain so powerful about Prince singing that particular lyric is that is the moment when he has overcome the male toxicity of his upbringing. That's what the movie is about. It's about spiritual awakening. It's about becoming a better human being. It's about becoming a more loving human being. Well, if you take certain things out because they're not, quote, PC, then what you really are not doing is allowing this character the ability to grow. And I'll end on this. We have to be careful when we're trying to be so-called woke, because we need to understand that consciousness is a journey, not a destination. And a lot of times, people who think they are conscious or think that they are woke or think that they are enlightened forget that that's a journey, and you have to give other people the latitude to grow. And what they're doing in this new film is not giving the kid, the character, the latitude to grow. And by the way, even Morris Day's character gets to grow because what we get at the end of the movie, because we all love, rightfully or wrongfully, the great moment when the time passes by their door and Morris gives the great line, how's the family? Hell of a line. We've all laughed about it. But what happens immediately after Morris gives that line? He's regretful. He knows that he is wrong. Well, young people, that's what growth is about. Sometimes you say some ill-ish. Sometimes you do something that's ill. And then you immediately go, that was messed up. Well, that's what Purple Rain is about. And if you don't get that Purple Rain is about growing from toxicity, well, maybe you're not the person who should be rewriting it. And maybe you're not the person who should be producing it because you don't understand that at his core, at Prince's core, from album 1 to the last thing he did, everything Prince did was about evolution and evolving and becoming a better person. And that is at the heart. And finally, if you make people in this movie who are musicians, if you make them no longer musicians, you are missing the total point of this movie, which it is a movie about music and musicianship, and that music save people's lives. Music is the reason some people get up in the morning. Music is the reason why some people don't go crazy. Music is the saving grace. It is the spirit from up on high that allows us to transcend whatever hell we are doing. And if you don't understand that, you should keep your filthy woke paws off Purple Rain. That's it.
Damn.
It's hard to follow that. It really is. And everything that really resonated, I think is really important that music is central, obviously, to the Purple Rain narrative. You can't have Purple Rain without music or the musicians that's tethered to the music. I will say this. I mean, if you separate what I've read about Purple Rain, the musical, and just think of it as a musical, you know, the potential to be brought to Broadway, I think it's a good thing. I actually went to see MJ the musical over Christmas because my mom is a Michael Jackson fan, and I knew that she would love seeing. Actually, it was over how she was here in October for Halloween. I was blown away. I was expecting to be bored. Because I'm not big on Broadway anyway. Like it's I rarely go Broadway shows, and if I do, it's usually a musical. But I was like, how can you be Michael Jackson? I was like, I just don't get it. But I got it. And like they did a phenomenal job, like with the set design, with the story. It is actually the best Broadway musical or play that I've ever seen in my entire life. Now I haven't seen many, maybe 10. So, but it is definitely, and I was like blown away. I have to give mad shout out to not just the actors and actresses and performers on stage, but whoever did the set design, whoever did the storyline, how they came in and out and wove that narrative, where they started. I was blown away. So if I would love whoever is behind MJ, like if they were in charge of the Purple Rain musical, I would be ecstatic. Like if that team, or at least like oversaw just like the structure of it, it would be incredible. And it's really important that new fans are, introduced to Prince. And this is one way to do it. So I'm all for it. I'm just concerned. When
I think, I'm sorry, don't cut you off.
I just want to quickly say, I'm just concerned, like when you take creative license, and more specifically, if you remove, I don't know. I mean, it's so important to keep the music and musicianship as the focus, because that's what Prince has always been about. So go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, I think, you know, the thing that they have to be cognizant of, and this is for all kind of IPs that be adapted for things. When you put out the word that, okay, this person is going to be the one in control of this, that person can't come out and be like, well, I think the original was bad. You know,
Thank you.
that's what's going to turn off people. Like, you know, you see this now with Prince. I think you see this with the Star Wars in some aspects and other things. But if you come out and say that it seems like you don't have a respect for the source material and that you're going to somehow, you know, do it better, it just turns people off. I don't think it's a good thing. It doesn't give good energy to this project right off the gate. And that's the thing that's troubling to me. I can understand wanting to change certain things because I'm the person who believes that stories have to evolve over time to be told to the generations so it makes sense in context to them. But as long as you keep the core essence of what the story is about,
Right.
that's what's important. So I could understand that there may be a wildly different take on Purple Rain. I have no problem with that. It would be different if they said we're going to do a wildly 21st century take of Prince's life. Then I'd be holding the pitch. But, you know, them wanting to reimagine a movie, hey, if it's good, more power to you. But you should never come out and say, well, I think the original Star Wars was bad and I'm going to redo it in today's world and show you how it's done. That's how it comes off to me. So that's my only real issue with this personally, is that. There you go.
And like you said, I think that when we talk about updates, right? I like what you said. Like, for instance, like, there are no payphones today. Right. So yeah, so that would, you know, you would change something like a payphone or but again, when you're looking at what's the core of it, right? I'm going to take someone who was a musician and now they're no longer going to be a musician. That is the complete opposite of what this story was about. So I agree with you. I agree with you, brother Dean, that there are updates and then there are butcherings. That's like in my creative writing class, we do a segment on what's the difference between creative license and straight up line. And I always have out certain movies where I go, this was a movie where they did a really good job of creative license. And this is a movie where they just out here lying on this person. None of this stuff happened in this person's life. And I think that even with a fictional work, right, we have to understand that, yes, there's creative license because, like you said, things just may not make sense to a new generation. But I think once you start saying that I want to project, and this is me, so I want everybody, when you get ready to send your angry emails and letters, don't send them to D'Angelo, don't send them to Brother D, send them to C. Lee, because I want all the smoke. I have a problem when you are taking your social political agenda and putting it on top of somebody else's work. And this is not the first time I've done this. If you've ever seen the HBO adaptation of Richard Wright's Native Son, if you've seen that movie is crap. It's terrible because it butchers Richard Wright's novel. And I'll give you another example because most of y'all probably haven't read this. If you've ever seen the movie I, Robot, the only thing they kept from the actual original novel, which, by the way, wasn't a novel, it was a collection of short stories, was the title and the 3 laws. I, Robot, the movie with Will Smith, is a complete butchering. And the only reason that's important is because the guy who wrote I, Robot, and I want both D'Angelo and Brother Dean, if y'all have seen the movie, to tell me if this is true. The guy who wrote the original I, Robot wrote it in the 50s because people were afraid of technology. So he wrote a collection of stories to keep people from being afraid of technologies. Does the movie that you saw with Will Smith keep people from being afraid of technology?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I never saw it. Actually,
Okay.
But I want to say, I think you're talking. Is it a book called Androids Sleep at Night or something? It's
No. It's actually the movie is actually called I, Robot.
No. I mean, I'm saying I, Robot. I think it's based off of the short story thing called Android Sleep or something.
Yeah, that's one of the short stories in the whole collection of short stories is titled I, Robot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would just, and I agree pretty much on anything. I would, if I had to argue anything, I would say I actually think Purple Rain is about, at its core, a son dealing with sort of the dysfunction in his household and how it plays out into the things that he's into. I think that's the story of it. And I say you could swap it out. It's going to sound crazy. You could swap it out. He could have been a star basketball player. It's still dealing with the same situations would have affected. It's about him sort of rising above and how do I deal and reconcile with my dad and my mom and how I am pushing that stuff on the people around me, which I don't even know if the movie actually resolves that at the end. Actually, just sort of shows that he had a moment and he does the song, but I don't know if you really understand, does his character really change? But that to be said, this new Purple Rain or this stage version of the original screenplay, if they can keep the essence of what the characters are doing, I think it could be cool. But at the other point of Purple Rain is it had fascinating music. I didn't mention they were changing the songs. So I'd be interested to hear how the music is interpreted. If it's at the same style of the 80s Prince, or do they add, or I don't know if this version that you mentioned in this movie has been updated for modern times. Were they going to do that with this? But I'm curious to see what it's. I'm not going to write this brother off completely. I just think he needs to show some respect to the source material and, watch your tone and delivery. As the old folks say, when you're speaking about something that's great, and if you want some changes, cool, but you're always going to big up what you're coming from. This is a Black iconic movie. It's a worldwide iconic movie, but this our movie. This our guy. So you really have to be careful how you speak, especially if you're young. If you're going to speak on the elders in any kind of way that could be seen as funny style, you have to tighten that part up. But I'm curious to see what they do. Anyway.
And I'll make one final comment, and I talked about this when I was discussing the HBO adaptation for This Is the End. I actually had an opportunity because I kicked around the idea, and I know it's going to sound crazy to a lot of people in the chat and maybe even the YouTube. If you think about Under the Cherry Moon and you think about the interplay between Christopher and Tricky, I always thought that this movie, that Under the Cherry Moon, could have been reimagined as a story about color complex, particularly based on the line where Christopher says to Tricky, and when the police come to carry you away, right? My mother, oh no, we definitely have different fathers, right? Caramel, chocolate. And then when you look at all the other interplay, so I was actually approached by some people because I published some other short stories about refashioning and reframing. And they were going to do the presentation and present it to the folk. The problem was I couldn't do it and remain faithful to the original. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't have been done, but for me, it was important because at the core, like you said, at the core of Under the Cherry Moon for Prince is love will conquer all. Like if love, we live in a parade, right? Remember that's the line that Christopher says to Tricky. So it was, how do I discuss this issue of color complex, right? How do I do all of that and stay true to the core? And because I wasn't able to do it, I'm not saying someone else couldn't do it, but I was that mindful of. But I think also that comes what you're saying about I was respectful to the original work, and I wasn't going to do anything that I felt was going to distract from love will conquer all. And I think that, so I agree with you 100% that it can be done as long as we are respectful to the work. And that's why I'll shut up.
So a couple of things. First of all, someone's asking, what's your newsletter, Celie? So how can people connect to you?
If you go, I have a website. My website is psychedelicliterature.com. So if you can just go to psychedelicliterature.com, my email is at the contact, and then you can just email me. And all you have to do is email me, and then I will email you that commentary that we put out, and then I can just add you to the newsletter.
I just put it in the chat. So psychedelicliterature.com/contact. That's one thing. And then another thing, we just want to make sure you said caramel, butterscotch.
Right. There you go. Thank you. There you go. There you go. Thank you. There you go.
Stone to the bone.
Yes. And then the other thing I put it up on the chat, but I think it's important to stress. Kim had posted, new fans need to know that Purple Rain is fiction. I think this is really important. And the kid is a character, not a bio. So I just want to reiterate what Kim has already
And
said.
I think that's important. I think that's important because that's what I think makes the Michael Jackson play work so well. That they're telling a life story
Right,
so
right.
that they're not locked into some things to where, like you say, with Purple Rain, it's an actual particular movie for a particular point for a particular time period,
Mhm.
right? That so yeah, so I think Kim, I'm glad Kim put that in the chat that we have to make those distinctions.
I love this comment from Rhonda Nicole. If Prince were still with us and I could interview him, I'd love to get his grown man point of view on so much of this. How would he approach Purple Rain or Under the Cherry Moon if he were to do them again? This is an excellent, excellent scenario. I really wish we could. All right. So I just got just a few more slides. Again, remember, if you click on these slides, this will take you to playbill.com for the original announcement. This is an interview with the playwright Brandon Jenkins, who's supposedly going to be the person who writes this musical. And if you click on this, it will go to the New Yorker, an interview with him. So if you haven't read this, I highly recommend that you do to get some context of our conversation. And then I've decided that I thought I changed this. I guess I didn't. I changed it in the wrong place. I'm going to move this after Salon until October. It's a long story, but it'll be a year that the box set has been out. And then don't forget, we're going to gear up for Erotic City 40 in April. We're counting down to that, as well as the Con Virtual Symposium. We have our company playlist with also the Book of Clarence songs are in this as well. So again, if you click on this, it'll take you to the playlist. And next week, we will be reading pages 234 to 241. So, let's see, aside. Did anyone have any issues with the Glam Slam Blu-ray? It wouldn't play for me last night. No, I actually haven't had any problems with the Glam Slam Blu-ray so far.
I will only say that, and I just thought it was I dropped it, and it got under, so I had to get some. So it started skipping for a minute, but then I kind of wiped it off.
Silly.
I know, right? I was moving from one place to another, and I was going from one room to another, and I dropped it, but I've dusted. So I did have that. It skipped, but once I wiped it, how going back to my old album days of learning how to, with the album, wipe the dust off and get that all off. But yeah, I did have a skipping problem on that.
That's the old Atari.
There you go. There it is right there. There it is. Oh, and one last thing.
Oh, you brought it with the Pong board.
That's what an old school Atari player.
Yeah. Pitfall.
Here
we don't go down that rabbit hole.
And before, as we leave, can I give a shout out to somebody?
Yes.
All right, so I want to give a shout out. Some of y'all who are on the newsletter know that my wife does really important work. My wife is what we call a political map maker, and that is she takes census data and she dumps census data into software, and she submits to the Department of Justice to help expand voting districts for Black people. So, for instance, my wife has increased. She's created 3 more over the past 10 years or so. 3 additional voting districts where Black people can elect a candidate of their choice. I mention that because Celie McInnes is a jerk, and when it comes to technical issues, I become even more of a jerk. We've been having problems, and so I'm on my phone, and that's why I've been kind of looking crazy. So I just got to give a shout out to my wife who took a break from doing her real serious Save Black People work to help her jerk husband. Because let me be really clear, I'm dating above my rank. Like, I know I'm dating out of my league. I'm married above my rank. I'm married out of my league. Like, if my wife was to leave me, if my wife was to leave me, you know what I'm gonna say? It was a good run, player. I was out of my league anyway. I ain't gonna even be mad that she left. So I just need to say, man, that I was freaking out, and she helped me also. See, the same thing. I had the same problem with the Glam Slam Live. That's why it looks different. So if you look at all the times I've been on What Would Prince Do, the only two times you've seen this poster, this painting that we got here is we. So anytime you see this painting, know that I'm having technical issues, and that my wife is saving her jerk husband from his own jerk self. But because I don't give her. I'm a jerk. I mean, all I ever wanted to be was a writer. I understand. Let me tell you. There's a quick story about Prince didn't understand his father because he didn't understand his father's focus on just being a musician until after he had made it and Prince was playing the piano. And remember, his cook is the name pronounced Rand or Randy, the cook that Prince had, and Prince was playing the piano, and Randy walked into the room off beat, and it so annoyed Prince. Prince was like, "Oh, that's why my father was a jerk. I get it now." And for those of us who are consumed with being creative, it's really difficult having another mate. And I don't deserve my wife anyway, because again, I'm not in her league. And the fact that she puts up with me. So I just had to say that the only reason I'm sitting here running my mouth and giving this, because once again, my wife has saved her jerk husband from himself. I'll shut up now.
We so appreciate your wife so much.
Your wife.
And it's because you take time out of your life to be with us many, many weekends for hours on end. And that is a sacrifice to you and your family. So we really do appreciate it. Same to you, Michael. And because you have your own shows that you do, I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your very busy schedules to be here. But I think the reason why you're both here is because of Prince.
Yes.
And, we have to.
And because of you.
Yes, and because of you. Let's be clear. Because look, there's a lot of people talking about Prince. We ain't hanging out with them. Let's be real clear now.
Right.
Yeah. We hanging out with you.
Thank you so much. All right. So I hope that everyone will, if you can, please go see Book of Clarence this weekend to support art. And we'll check you next week at the same bat time, same bat channel. Michael Dean, take us out.
Work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.